The DOJ is allegedly investigating California Governor Gavin Newsom and his wife, with sources saying the probe started in 2025 and is based on whistleblower complaints related to their personal finances. Jennifer Seabill Newsom's nonprofit reportedly took cash from a Native American tribe that operates a casino in the state and was backed by her husband, while her other charity reportedly paid her own private film company directly. But the Newsoms, well, they're pushing back.
Donald Trump isn't just coming after me because of my mean tweets. He's coming after me because I'm considering running for president, because he hates that I've consistently called him out over and over again for his lies and deceit. One by one, anyone who has challenged Donald Trump has ended up on his hit list. And today, I proudly join that list.
Why does he talk like that? But just last month, Newsom's former chief of staff, Dana Williamson, pled guilty to federal fraud charges. Joining us now for tonight's Big Close-Up is California Post opinion editor Joel Pollak. Joel, you dig into all of this. We don't have a long enough show to go through all of it, but we're going to try to just get as much in as we possibly can. Now, the Newsoms are saying this is all politically motivated, but I have a feeling that there's a lot here when you start digging into some of the nonprofits, some of Jennifer Seabill Newsom's extracurricular activities. What more can you tell us that we should be aware of?
Well, first of all, who knows? It could be politically motivated. John Bolton made that argument, and then he ended up pleading guilty. It doesn't change the facts. And it's been known for a long time that Gavin Newsom and his wife have been tied up in this very shady practice of what we call behested payments. Now, they're legal under California campaign finance law. Basically, politicians ask big money donors to give contributions to nonprofits of their choice. But in Newsom's case, he asked donors to give money to his wife's nonprofit organization. And sometimes these donors were, as you mentioned, the Native American tribe before, they were interests with business before the state. So it raises questions of conflict of interest. That was already out in the open. That's in the public domain. And it's very shady. What else might be going on in her tax returns, we've yet to find out. But we do know that Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff has pleaded guilty for fraud and corruption, and the rot is pretty thick in Sacramento.
Joel, there's this other organization called the California Protocol Foundation. They pay for basically, Newsom's advertised it as, hey, this is taking some burden away from taxpayers. It pays for stuff like when he goes overseas, his travel overseas for conferences and stuff. We know that he's tried to position himself, I guess, as president in waiting. Is there any impropriety looks there? Like some of the people that are on the board of this or people that have donated to it also doing business with the state of California?
Well, it's hard to know because there's this outside nonprofit that pays for Gavin Newsom's international travel. And if it didn't exist, he might be dipping into state funds to pay for all this travel. You might say Gavin Newsom's very wealthy. He's got a personal fortune in the several dozens of millions of dollars. Certainly he can pay for his own travel, and the state pays for his security. But they've set up this nonprofit organization. We don't know a lot about it. So the question really is, why is he spending so much time and so much money overseas when California has so many pressing issues at home?
Okay, Joel, there's more financial shenanigans going on in California. The Public Utilities Commission's reportedly awarding contracts to companies based on their sexuality. Businesses have to prove that they're gay enough to qualify for the LGBT contracts. For example, they can include 3 letters from personal contacts attesting to their sexual orientation. Now, the DOJ says they're going to look into that program. What's up with that? It looks like a lot of red tape. And how do you prove you're gay?
Well, this is a story that came out of the Manhattan Institute, and they pointed out that this practice of paying people more in terms of state contracts if they're gay started about a decade ago. It's probably unconstitutional because of California's ban on preferential treatment in contracts and in educational admissions. But you point out the absurdity of asking employees and directors and managers and CEOs about their private sexual practices in order to qualify for millions of dollars in energy contracts. Of course, consumers don't care if you're AC or DC. Consumers just want to make sure the lights are turned on. But this is probably illegal and unconstitutional.
Wow.
Joel, let's talk a little bit more about money issues. Because, guys, we have the far left California billionaire tax. It's going to be officially on the ballot in November. And if it passes, it will impose a 5% tax on the state's billionaires. And it is so radical, Joel, that even Gavin Newsom has pushed back on it. He said back in January that he'd do everything in his power to stop it. But now that it's been proposed, we've seen high earners like Mark Zuckerberg and Peter Thiel. They are getting out of California with more sure to follow. What's interesting here is that in order to get this proposed tax on the ballot, there needed to be at least 875,000 signatures from registered California voters. So it seems like that threshold has been passed. You know, even with Gavin Newsom pushing back on it, are you surprised that it seems to have even that amount of support?
Well, the way signature gathering happens in California is that if you have enough money, you can basically hire enough people to gather the signatures necessary to put anything on the ballot. And so the SEIU was able to get this billionaire tax on the ballot. It is probably unconstitutional. It would certainly be unconstitutional on the federal level, might be unconstitutional on the state level, but $1 trillion in wealth has already left the state, probably going to cost the state more money than it's worth over the long run. But here's the other thing about it. The governor says he's going to fight it with everything he has, but he's sitting on millions of dollars in his campaign account that he's not spending yet to defeat this measure. So I don't know where that political will is, and I suspect he is afraid of disappointing the left-wing voters he's going to need for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2028. That's why he's talking a good game, but not actually doing anything to stop this.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Last thing I want to ask you about, it's going back a little ways, but I'm still very passionate about California politics in Los Angeles. We saw this mayoral race primary play out that was very disappointing for a lot of folks that really looked at Spencer Pratt as somebody who could bring some real change. My question for you, just in regards to, you and I talked about it on my Outkick show, but that fire aid money, that's something that Spencer was fired up about. A lot of Californians, a lot of Angelenos were fired up about that. They had the big concerts, they raised all this money, and a lot of the people impacted by the fire said, I didn't really get anything out of this. I'm wondering where it's going. We know that it was kind of dispersed to different, again, nonprofits and things of that nature. Have you kept up with this, and is this just going to be something that goes away and the money's just spent and everybody has to be quiet and get over it?
Well, there were a number of investigations, and the problem here is that there were no laws broken. This is how money is dispersed by NGOs. And there are professional grant writing companies who excel in getting money. And the fact that a lot of this money didn't go to individuals is a product of that system. But it's also symbolic of a general problem in California, which is that when we have public money that is supposed to be spent on solving problems, it often gets diverted to NGOs. It is often not spent properly. And there's a massive fraud problem in California. Right now, California owes the federal government $20 billion that it borrowed to pay money during COVID, and it hasn't paid it back, and a lot of that money disappeared. It was stolen. And so we have a problem. And I've said, in fact, to the president himself, I've asked him to appoint somebody to oversee the money that comes into California to help with the fire rebuilding. And I know they're thinking about it, but we need that because in a one-party state like California, there is no check on power, no accountability, and people get away with all kinds of things they would never get away with in other states.
Well, you're right about that one. Those nonprofits, man, they are crazy work. Joel Pollak, thanks for reporting on all of this wonderful work at the California Post, and thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Tom. California, man, they sure know how to make money disappear, whether it's the $24 billion plus for the homeless or the fire aid money. Now they want to tax the billionaires. I'm wondering, maybe instead of taxing the billionaires, we can just figure out where all this taxpayer money is going. That might be a good start. But, Joel mentioned it. It's a one-party state. So when there's no one to check up on anything, you can kind of just do what you want. Yeah,
which is the amazing thing is that Gavin Newsom admitted that, that this bill is bad, the billionaire's tax, and that he's against it, probably because The other thing he did was he admitted he's running for president. Is that the first time we heard that? Because politicians are always playing footsie and saying,
he said
that
he's thinking about it because he can be associated with his PAC and raise big money up until he says he's a candidate.
Right. Well, now we know because they always are saying, I have no plans, I never think about it, and then, of course, they run. Saying I'm thinking about it, that's as close to an aggressive run as I've ever seen. And he's going to need probably about 4 liberal billionaires to donate money to him. So that's why he's against it.
I think you might be onto something, Mr. Shalou. From Shalou to who? California, I mean, you're a numbers gal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money that's generated in California, a lot of people with a lot of wealth in California. But as much as they raise, as much as the nonprofits get, they never really seem to be able to solve their problems.
Right, because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to treat money. The way you treat money impacts how money moves. And you can see when you start taxing it, it's going to flee to other states like Texas and Florida. And you don't have to be a genius to see that's already happening. We named Peter Thiel and Mark Zuckerberg. Why on earth would you create higher taxes for the people that are leading big tech and the AI revolution? You want to lead that? You need to keep those people close. But that's absolutely not what they're doing. And I want to underscore what Joel said, because it may have been missed. It's not just nonprofits that are an issue here. There's a labor union behind this proposed billionaires tax. So you got to ask what's in it for them.
You do have to ask that question. Joey, what do you make of the California mess?
Yeah, I'd say that the whole impropriety about pay for play, that's so hard to prove. I mean, it took gold bars in the safe to get Bob Menendez prosecuted. So that's hard to prove. With that being said, I'm sure it's not a happy day for Gavin Newsom. And I love he goes, I'm proud to be on that list. Sure you are, buddy. I mean, if I had, this organization paying all my travel, probably going to pay my legal fees too. Maybe it doesn't bother him as much.
The thing about it for me is, even if it's not illegal, the people need to know with what you're doing with it, because there's all this discussion about you hate the millionaires, you hate the billionaires. Well, there's a lot of money going poof into nonprofits, and people want to know what you're doing with that money, and you have to explain that to the people. Even if you're not doing anything illegal, you still got to explain where the money's going, and I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.